the unbelievably legendary Mike, no middle name given at birth, Veeck. How are you, buddy? Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
We hear your dulcet tones.
The dulcet tones. Hey, that when the curtain opens, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Can you do that again? That.
Nothing but the best here. There we go.
Oh, baby, that was like.
Yeah,
wow.
fun.
Now, Mike, to my left is my wonderful. I was about to say talented, but let's just leave it at wonderful. My wonderful co-host is Joanne Goodhart, who, by the way, also does not have a middle name. Mm-hmm. Much like Mary Frances, your mom, because Mary Frances was all one name. And then to her left is Keanu Thompson, and she's a longtime regular on our show, and I insisted she join us today because Keanu, do you want to explain your lineage here?
So my uncle is Mike Cardellano. My grandpa is Tony Cardellano.
You're connected.
Oh my God, in heaven.
Yes.
Oh, baby.
Yes. So
those are two of my absolute.
Yes.
Boy, are you from a great bloodline.
Yes. So we've been fireworks is in our blood, right? So I tried to get my uncle to call in. He was too shy, but he.
Oh no!
Yes, yeah.
Well, you believe me, you could do the talking for 8 people. So.
But yeah, they speak
wonderful.
Very highly of you.
Yes, and we'll.
Wonderful to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
That's true royalty. They taught me to shoot fireworks.
Yes.
And that's really how the skybox was invented, because the number one rule back then when you used flares was you never look up. And of course, I was constantly looking up because, like I still am, I'm so lost. I'm just like looking up, and I saw the reflection in that Chicago Cardinals press box, and I said, "Oh, I bet we could sell that."
I love that part of the. I loved that part of the documentary because I didn't know that. I had no idea, but that's how it was. You're like, oh, this might be a really nice seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, Mikey was always coming back to me going, "You don't look up, Mike. You don't look up." I go, "It doesn't matter. I got glasses on." He goes, "You don't look up, Mike. It's just the mark of a real professional." So I never made it. But and then, of course, Tony and my old man invented the exploding scoreboard.
That's
together.
right.
So that's really a. This has made my whole day.
Oh, I love it.
No.
Well, and now Keanu hosts her own well over an hour show, and I just love how long it took you to get to the fact that, yes, it was the exploding scoreboard. Initially, it just sounded like you knew them at some sort of like marital event or something.
Well, no, we talk. You know what else?
I'm not like that. I'm not like that at all. When I don't know you, I just go, "Oh, okay."
They talked about it.
I don't understand. Why do you not have a middle name, Jay? I mean, we were Catholic, so they were going to have a slew of us. That's why they did.
9.
What happened with you?
Yeah, my mother, one of 10 children, Catholic, Italian Catholic, so she didn't have a middle name. And then my father also didn't, also raised Catholic. And so no one in my immediate family has one. And my maiden name is Nosachinsky. That's from my dad's side. So, like, my mom said the name was long enough. So you don't need one. And I kind of agreed with her.
It's useless to have a middle name anyway. Right?
Anyways.
It's chic not to.
Well, and again, I always tell Jo to make her feel better when she's not looking at the mirror and feeling better for herself already. That also, the other thing that you guys share, George Washington never had a middle name.
Yes.
So there you go.
Kim Kardashian's daughter North, no middle name.
Well,
I didn't know that. Yep. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that.
Start a club.
Well, my intro was a little vague, Mike, but we started the show off with the trailer from Saint of Second Chances. Every single person here has seen it, and I knew they don't like a lot of the things I like, but I knew in recommending this that they were going to love it. Now, Keanu, I knew was going to love it, obviously with the familial ties, but across the board, our producers, Stupid Gino, everyone saw it and absolutely loved it. And I suppose we can start there, and then through that we can go a little over the entire career. I guess, I don't know. Well, first of all, Jeff Daniels is the consummate Midwestern guy. How did they get him as the amazing narrator? And he was perfect.
I don't know. I think the story goes that he only had 57 lines. And they called him up and they said, you know, you're a real talent and you're better than this subject deserves. So can you do this in an hour? And he goes, I could do this in an hour in my sleep. And so they hired him like that. And you know, Morgan Neville is such a talented guy. And he and Jeff Momberg, I mean, quite frankly, never has a guy who's failed as many times as I have, you know, ended up looking better than I deserve. I mean, and, you know, they had to tell me who Charlie Day was, because, of course, I didn't know. My son thought that was cool, but I was just like, yeah, that's very cool.
It was cool.
It was so cool. Charlie Day, for those that haven't seen it, and if you haven't seen it yet, you hate America, he plays... in flashbacks, the one and only Mike, no middle name given at birth, Veeck, and he does it great. I thought the beard was a little questionable. I felt like I saw some glue, but other than that, it was great. And then, of course, the other thing, and I would love to know whose idea it was, it's uncanny, as one who grew up in the greater Chicagoland area, there was only one person that could play the infamous and amazing Bill Veeck, and that, of course, was you. And when they put on the bald wig and you shave your goatee, oh my God, it was unbelievable.
You know, they were so smart about that, because if they'd ever asked me in advance, one, I'd have been apoplectic. You know, I'd had to go back into therapy for another.
Oh, yeah.
I've been in therapy since I saw Mikey Cardellano the last time. So they waited until I got to the hotel in L.A. And then they call me up and they go, would you be willing to shave your goatee? And we want you to play Dad. And I said, of course, well, I don't know. I'm neurotic enough. He wasn't really that neurotic, so I don't know if I can do that. But I directed, you know, whenever I get bounced out of baseball, I direct commercials. So I directed 700 people with no talent. So I figured, hell, I can direct myself. I lived down to all of my necessities. But it was really, the way they did it was so perfect, because what was I going to say? I mean,
no.
You know, they got me right there. Are you going to do it? And I was terrified. What was funny, though, about it was I was fine in LA. When I got home, I wasn't right for 2 weeks. And it's the only serious thing I'll say to you. It brought all of these feelings that I had obviously not dealt with for years. You know, I used to tell everybody kind of cavalierly, I had nothing left to say to my dad when he died, and I really believed that. Well, I had a lot to say to him, because it all bubbled up to the, you know, how I dealt with my daughter, which I ripped my old man off from the first time I met him. I did everything he taught me by osmosis. And the things that I didn't thank him for, that I always thought I had, but I really didn't. So it was...
That's
unbelievable. I think about
unbelievable.
2.5 weeks later, I started to be okay.
Well, I'll tell you what, like, I can't imagine what that does to you brain-wise, because, like, honestly, if you were to shave my head and get rid of this pubic hair that I've super glued to my face, I think I would look a lot like George Schultz, my dad, and I think it would freak me the hell out to do that and look myself in the mirror, and then much less play him on a documentary. That's insane. And I'll say one more thing, and then I've been talking too much, and these girls are about to poke my eyes out, so I'm sure they have a bunch of questions. But I will say one of my earliest memories is my old man was bitching about Chicago traffic and muttering to himself, and we're in Hyde Park, and I didn't know what was going on, but my dad all of a sudden gets bug eyes, and he starts honking his horn, and this guy he's limping, and immediately I'd never seen a peg leg before, and I'm doing a double take, and then he does this, and he's like, Bill, I want you to remember this. That right there is Bill goddamn Veeck. And to this day, I still remember it, and I'm just sitting there waving, and I remember it to this day, and that was my one and only time I saw your old man, but yeah, it stuck with me. And also, clear up an urban myth. Did he or did he not have an ashtray in his wooden leg? And he'd sit like this.
He did.
There is a Santa.
One of the things that we used to enjoy was, he always sat in sat in the front in the cab, and that was how he did all his market research. He'd just be talking and seeing, where people were going and what was happening around town. But he'd always prop his leg up, kind of lean back and prop it up a little. And then the kids, we all knew it was coming. And that meant we were going to ride the curb. And riding the curb was what we did when the cab driver, watched him put a cigarette out in his leg. And we would go up over whatever curb was available, and we'd kind of ride down the sidewalk for 150, 200 feet, and then he'd get it together. And but he loved to do that,
Fucking amazing.
Say, see if your old man can do that.
Oh, he's truly, Mount Rushmore, Chicago. Bill fucking Veeck. That's my middle name for him. Unbelievable. I'm sorry. Go ahead, girls. I'm babbling because I'm so happy you're on.
I love the idea in the documentary. You talk a lot about that idea box that really did kind of span the generations of your family, and you go through this whole thing about if there's a fire in the house, someone was tasked with making sure they grabbed the idea box. So I wonder if that sort of helped you from a young age, like sort of knowing that ideas are valued, if that helped you confidently bring stuff to your role in working with your father, or were you still like, is this gonna flop? Like, how confident were you in not only his reception of your ideas, but the execution of them?
I'm Catholic, so I was never confident.
Sure.
They found that. They
Choir
found
preaching.
That out. Make sure you don't. But what it did do was it gave me such a wonderful idea about what was important. We were, we like you, we came from these huge families, and nobody in my house ever said, go make a lot of money, go be a lawyer, go be something that we can be proud of. Basically, they said, I got out of college on Tuesday and joined a rock and roll band on Friday, and I had a wonderful next 3.5 years. And my dad was thrilled with it. I think my mom kind of looked down her nose at it a little, but we weren't very good, so I don't blame her for that. But it raises you to realize that money is way down the list in terms of things that are important. And as we go on now in this societal structure we're in, you recognize everybody talks about innovation and everybody talks about ideas and having the courage to try them. And ours was just a simple fire drill. If you grab anything, just grab the idea box. I always thought it was because it was wooden and they'd send me back in and tell me it was the wrong one. Go back in there and get the other one. Not this one. The downside is I was 42 before I had any idea how to handle money. I had no clue, Didn't have any, so I didn't have to worry.
I was going to say, I'm 48 and I still need a class on that one.
Of all of your innovations and ideas that you did bring to the game of baseball, this is going to be hard, but do you have a favorite?
Yeah, the instant replay with the mimes is going to probably, I just really love that. It was, I don't know where it came from. We used to have this little black and white television, 380 feet from home plate. And it was, 7 inches or something. And ladies and gentlemen, we direct your attention to the replay board out in left center field. Well, people couldn't see that with the Hubble telescope. I mean, you couldn't see it. And it got such a laugh every time. I started to think, and I was walking through Central Park one day, and I go, God, mimes are brave. I mean, I don't know. In the upper Midwest, they hate mimes. But, they survive in New York. And I thought, this would be really funny. And no one would ever go for it. So we announced it. And 6 or 8 people showed up to cover the death of instant replay. So when those 5 mimes jumped on top of the duck, Bill, this is for you. This is a great Bill Murray story. So the mimes jump up on top of the dugout, and the crowd is paralyzed. I mean, there was paralysis. You could hear a pin drop. People were like, oh, my God, this is even dumber than anything we've come to expect. It's like 1 1,000, 2 1,000. It's dead silent. I said to Bill, what do you think? And he goes, in all those years of live television, I've never seen anything tank like this. I said, this is not really the time for a tutorial. What I'd really like to know is, what do you think we should do? And he said, shut the lights off and let's run. And I'm like, and we're dead. I mean, people are just, until Davey in the front row throws a red and yellow, fully loaded hot dog at the mimes, and for the next 20 minutes, we had the largest food fight in the history of, I think, minor league or major league baseball. 6,329 people ate 16,458 kielbasa's, hot dogs, Italian sausages. It's not gastrointestinally impossible what happened. We had the biggest concession night of our career out of that huge failure. But boy, when those mimes jumped up on top and recreated that play,
oh boy! I mean, and so much of a lot of your genius came to fruition with the St. Paul Saints. I still got to get one of their hats. Billy, you have too many hats. Shut up, Joe. But you know, a lot of it was so touching. You know, you've got a legless pinch hitter. You got a blind guy doing play-by-play. You turn this team that makes no sense, that had no affiliation to the just World Series winning Twins, and were right nearby, and turn it into this behemoth, this money-making machine. But one of the things that I thought was the most touching was almost sort of a gimme as far as like getting people in the stands is concerned, is rejuvenating Darryl Strawberry's career. And I forgot how much you did just that. He was done. He was done with baseball. He's recovering from the drug and alcohol.
Does he send you a fruit basket every year?
Incredible arrangement.
Lord.
He does. He actually, it's funny, Jay. He does better than that. Whenever we honor him, he drops everything and comes back.
Does he?
That's really great.
He said, "This
so
is
awesome.
really when my life changed." And you know, I love strong women, and what comes through in the documentary so much was that I wasn't there with Darryl. I'd worked so hard. I've been washed up so many times, and I thought, gosh, you know, we've sold out 700 times. We don't need Darryl, which was a selling point for him. We didn't need him to pimp him and draw people. But I hesitated, and man, my wife Libby ripped me a new one all the way up Route 35. 2 hours I took the silent treatment, and the inside of that car, I don't know, it went down to like minus 67 or something. She was like, but when she unloaded and called me a hypocrite, I was like, we got to get over this one. So I called him the next day, and we did the deal. But he hit 18 home runs in 29 games. 18 home runs in 29 games. We sold his contract to the Yankees. He went to Columbus from St. Paul. What was very important was this was 96. So he went from St. Paul to Columbus. He hit 3 home runs in 2 games at the AAA affiliate in Columbus, and then hit 11 for the world champion Yankees. So it showed that he didn't have to go play AAA after coming from St. Paul, that if the pitching was good enough, the caliber of play was good enough. That really put us on the map. And I think that he discovered the joy of the game. The people in St. Paul were so thrilled that a guy of his caliber was there to play, and they just encouraged him constantly. And I think he suddenly found out it was great to be a kid.
Yeah.
You know, he hit 300 home runs before Mickey Mantle.
Yeah.
He reached 300 home runs. I mean, this is a guy with talent like this, and it just made him love the game again. And now he preaches 300 times a year. It's fine after his recent heart scare.
I know,
but
yeah.
He puts 2,500 people in a church hall to hear him talk about, you know, birth and death and redemption.
It amazes me that it's just taken until now for the Mets to retire his number. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm babbling.
Well, just sort of to that point, the idea of with the Saints, the underdogs, you really supported a lot of people, a woman on the team.
Oh, yeah. That was really cool.
And there are moments where, like, I'm getting choked up because, You know, like you said, with money, right? So many people just want to make business decisions that will make them the most money. And quite often that means a lot of people with a lot of talent get overlooked. And I feel like you really did a service to those people who often would. And it's great for us watching the documentary. I'm sure for the people in the stands, for the people watching on TV, like, I feel the decisions you made were really inspiring. And yeah, that's it. It's not a question, more of a statement.
She wants to be
My mom
hired.
was the first publicist for the Ice Capades. And
wow.
you know, in the 40s, she had her share of backroom deals with cigar smoke to the ceiling, and she knew how to cut a deal. And she was no sissy about it. So when you grow up with those things, you just pick up these traits by osmosis. And the thing I'm most proud of is the fact that 25 years ago plus, I mean, Isla Borders pitched in 97. Look at Major League Baseball. They throw their backs out, patting themselves on the back for inclusion of women. 25 years ago, I watched Isla Borders go out onto that field, and 6,329 people, if she was at home, stood up. And on the road, it was the same. And it took them 25 years to realize, you know, Justine Siegel was the first woman to coach in uniform for our club in Brockton. And things don't change if you don't take a chance. And that's the part it was just such a wonderful experiment in, you know, because if you made a mistake, I mean, Isla had to be able to pitch. That was the beautiful thing. She had darn near perfect mechanics. And if she'd had another 3-4 miles an hour on her fastball, she'd still be hanging around. I've tried to hire her for years as a pitching coach because her mechanics are so perfect.
Wow.
She became emblematic of what was going to happen. And now all these people are standing on her shoulders. And I was happy to be part of that because she's quite a woman.
You guys come
She's a
from
firefighter now.
You guys come from a long line of that because your dad integrated the American League via the Cleveland Indians with Larry Doby, who is now in the Hall of Fame, and people forget this. It was very soon after Jackie Robinson, and then he immediately gets Satchel Paige, who was like 80 at the time, but could still pitch, and like all of these things started with Bill Veeck. I guess that wasn't a question either.
In December, one of the really wonderful experiences of our lives. I say that because it was Libby and I went to D.C. to watch Larry Doby Jr. accept on his father's behalf a Congressional Medal of Honor. There are only 180 of those floating around, 180 of them, and they gave one to Larry Doby. And I'm convinced to this day that none of us know what it's like to be Jack Robinson. None of us really can relate to being number one. But we all have finished second, whether it was, you know, in the Richie Valens Jr. dance contest or going out with Cindy Good. In my case, I finished a distant second in that.
You're really personalizing this.
We always end up also run. And so there was this great identification with Larry Doby. But Larry Doby Jr. did something really, really phenomenal. Is he insisted that the other side of the coin be struck with the photograph of Steve Gromick and Larry Doby that appeared on the front page of the New York Times. It was the first time that a black man and a white man had jumped into each other's arms and were embracing.
Oh.
And Larry said, "You can honor my dad all you want, but Doby family's not coming. We're not participating unless you put that photograph on the back of that coin." And they did.
Oh, God, that's fucking great. God, that's like
wonderful story?
Jackie and Pee Wee Reese. Yeah. Jesus. Well, and Keanu, like, what would your family recall from what became, like, that's the thing, like, so much of what happened back in both the Veeck, Bill and Mike era became just a permanent thing of all sports, fireworks being one of them. What would your family recall and remember and stuff like that?
The part of the documentary, you started talking about cocktail napkins and writing ideas on cocktail napkins. in my family for years. My nana and because the lore is that my grandpa sat down at the bard with it's the bar underneath, obviously, right? That's what it's called. Yeah.
And I would have killed to.
And they wrote up the exploding scoreboard idea and the contract on a cocktail napkin. So when you said that, it's been something that's been going on. It's a story in my family for years and years and years. So I just appreciated that so much. I'm like, look at this.
You never told me that.
Yeah, no, that was Mike, I used to work at Rutledge Cab Company. Does that still exist?
Yes.
Yes, I used to. Yeah, I figured. I went to college at Charleston, and him and Bill Murray, and then there's one more partner, right? It's I coincidentally was a hostess at their restaurant. My nana called me and she said, "Your grandfather loved the Veecks. If you see him in there, you need to tell him who your grandfather is." I'm like, okay, and I didn't know any of this history until I think I mentioned that to you, Mike. But yeah. So you guys have meant a lot to our family for forever. Yeah.
I thank you for that on behalf of the Veecks who are here, and then of course the Veecks who ain't. But Tony came up to the barge room after every fireworks show.
Yeah.
And he and Dad had a secret language. I mean, one of the things that was, if you think about it, one of the things that was so admirable about your grandfather and about my dad was they made a huge impact on sports. The two of them together coming up with this invention was never copyright, was never trademarked.
Yeah.
And I used to say, my dad, I'm sure, and I know that your grandpa had some tough times. And I used to say to them, why didn't you guys copyright what was the greatest idea in the history of sport? And they kind of look at each other and laugh, and they have another drink, and then my dad would say, you have to keep challenging yourself. You have to one up yourself.
Yeah.
We could have copyrighted that. It would have stopped us. We'd have made some money from it, but then we'd have never gone on and tried to one up and do something better.
It's true.
And I never forgot that. People think about the amount of money Charlie Gibbs and sign companies and things like that made from an idea that my dad and your grandpa had. I mean, it's staggering when you think about the amount of money that was responsible. And you know something? If they were here, they'd be bored.
They wouldn't care.
That's longer than that's longer than you should devote to the concept of money. But they did a lot of deals on the back of cocktail napkins.
Oh, that's what they always say. Which there's no better over a drink, writing something down on a cocktail napkin. What's better than that, right?
Best.
And to this day, every sports team and every firework company does. Home runs on the exploding scoreboards and things. Not all of them, but I mean, it's definitely part of the thread of America.
Well, how many
American
people do Nancy Faust's "na na 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 hey hey goodbye" now, which drives me nuts. We should have at least. I don't know how you copyright another person's song as it relates to a team, but
I do want to ask
really
you.
I hate you.
I want to ask you about one of your ideas. Nobody's welcome, or
Oh yes.
Nobody night.
nobody night, where no one, it was a full running game with concessions and employees, but no one in the stands. What did, for example, a hot dog seller think about that, having to go to work?
Well, they hated it. They absolutely hated it. Because you'd see them going through the stands, and that was the part. It had to be legit. It had to be exactly what happens. So you'd see program sellers, "Hey, get your program," followed by a deafening silence. There was nothing, but all of the 2,500 fans were outside because we'd seen a record. The Portland Beavers owned the record for the fewest attendance numbers. 11 people showed for a Portland Beavers AAA game. And so once we saw that, I lusted after zero. So we decided that we would lock the stadium and keep everybody out. And it really was a funny gag. And the only mistake, of course, I made was not calling the season ticket customers.
Ooh.
So we had to give them hot dogs outside. But the most interesting thing from that whole thing was after the game, the players could hear each other. They could hear one another.
Oh.
And afterwards, they came in and they said, Mike, that wasn't cool. We didn't care for this. And I said, why not? And they said, well, the fans. And the fans. So they are really important to the game. Aren't they?
Oh, I see. It was a lesson.
Oh, what
I'm
an
an idiot.
concept.
Oh,
And I said, this shows
brilliant.
you, when it seems to be too much trouble to sign an autograph for that kid, I always, on opening day, I point out, I go, who's that over there? And they go, oh, that's Bill Murray. And I go, what's he doing? And they go, he's signing an autograph. I go, if an A-lister can sign an autograph for those kids, so can you.
Yeah.
And if you want to
that
have
is
a
brilliant.
long and happy life, sign autographs and people will remember that you took care of them. And when you can't take care of yourself, they'll still root for you. It's interesting, but all by accident.
Yeah.
Because they said, ooh.
I'm a moron.
Like
I never put two and two together. I never put. I'm an absolute idiot. Oh, that is absolutely brilliant.
Nobody.
Isn't it amazing?
Well, and also, what a weird precursor to COVID games.
Oh God.
When everyone tied you with no one in the stadiums,
This is going back. This goes back to something that Joe said, but COVID. So the St. Paul Saints, the lowly, bottom of the food chain, not independent team that sold every game out for 11 years. I said that's a little self-serving, but we decided that we were going to strike a blow for all of the independents and all the people who've been made to feel that they don't measure up. So when St. Paul went to work, when my men and women, who are some of the best marketers in the history of the game, in my opinion, they got to work on a COVID plan when all the stadiums opened up, or the French opened their bike race. The Saints did a 12-page protocol on how to open a ballpark. So we divided the ballpark into 5 different sections, each with a ladies' room and a men's room, and each with a concession stand. And, you could buy merchandise, but they all had different entrances. So suddenly here's this insignificant kind of pissant little minor league upstart team that designed for the whole world how we came back from COVID.
Wow.
And I pointed out because people always are told, oh, that's for the big guys to think of. And that's for the women who are all of the architects and all of the people who built all these wonderful emporiums that deal with people. But that's not true. You can take something as insignificant as the Saints, and just if you have the right people, you can do amazing things.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you guys have the last ones, but just briefly, I would obviously be remiss, and I know at this point you're pretty sick of talking about it. I've got to mention Disco Demolition Night, and I'm going to ask you a question that wasn't in the documentary because this could possibly be another urban myth. I had heard that after the whole shit went down, that about, I'd say a month later, maybe, I like, as much as I partake, I don't know how long it grows, that weed plants were growing in the outfield after it had happened. Is that an urban myth, or is that actually a thing?
It absolutely happened. Alan
Santa is once again real.
People don't realize that in 77 we did Cheap Trick at ACDC, and 76 we had 67,000 people for Aerosmith.
Oh, that
helps.
helps.
A lot of
Yeah,
dope on the field.
Yeah, that helps.
There was some stems and seeds.
Yep.
But Bannister came back in and he goes, dope's growing behind second base. Should we yank it? I said, no, let's make sure we get a picture of it, and then we'll start spreading the word.
Well, I'll tell you what is so great about that. His dad actually famously planted the ivy in Wrigley Field, that iconic baseball thing. Mike, I'm here to tell you, weed plants in Old Comiskey Park beats the hell out of that.
Yeah.
That is our ivy.
You know, you'll love this, Bill, because this is a true Sox fan. So Libby says to me, you know, I've never seen the ivy that your father planted, Wrigley Field. And I said, and you won't. And she said, well, can't we go see Wrigley Field once? I go, not a chance. I have never seen a game. Well, I went with Bill once late in my life because he said I had to do it. But I took her to see McCartney at Wrigley Field so she could get a picture with the ivy.
Nice.
But we left there like, you know,
that's the way to do it.
Was done.
Well, my dad, I hate to say this, is a Cubs fan. And I'm a lifelong White Sox, but like he would always just nag me when I'd really get into the White Sox as a kid and watch documentaries. He would always whisper into my ear and say, even when Bill was a White Sox fan, I'm sorry, a White Sox owner, he was still a Cubs fan. I even think he went to Cubs games while being a Sox owner. I don't know if that's true, but that's how my dad was just. And by the way, my grandfather was a White Sox fan, so I just brought back the night. But yeah, that was definitely a thing because everyone loved Bill Veeck. It was like Mark Grace. Even White Sox fans like Mark Grace. There was sort of that one.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The only thing White Sox fans didn't like, this goes back to the Cardelanos. See, we're all working people. And the reason that the Cubs play day games predominantly is because none of those guys have jobs.
I knew exactly.
You know, they all got BMWs and Mercedes. You know, I'm a Ford guy. We got to work for a living. So.
Oh, it's so good.
Makes people crazy.
Well, and then of course, and boy, I didn't know, because the problem with the documentary, and my only critique, is it should have been like a 5-parter. I mean, that's how insane your life has been. And unfortunately, your wonderful mother, Mary Frances, one word, doesn't have the middle name, she got a little short shrift in this because she's a pretty amazing woman. Not only did she come up with these very debatable whether or not they are appreciated or looks down upon. I think that the shorts was one of the better moves ever.
Iconic.
I thank you. She came up with that, but your mom was hilarious. And also, like, you know, such a big family. Like when your dad was running the Browns and they go to Baltimore, she was like in a cab or something. And the cab driver's in St. Louis and he's like, how dare you? You're moving them. And she's like, listen, we have 9 kids, and unlike the Cardinals, we are not owned. We don't come from brewery money, like, you know, the Budweiser, everything like that. Like, my husband has got to make a living, and you fuckers aren't coming to the park. And like, that was your mom, and I just thought it was so badass. But again, not a question.
See, there's a great story about my mom. Just shows you how quick she was. We gave away a vasectomy one day on Father's Day.
All right, I didn't know that.
And it raised a lot of hell. They were, you know, people were. So the promotion was canceled after 80 minutes. But it got attention all over the country. My favorite was in Anchorage. The front of the sports section after we canceled it just said promotion snipped. And they called my mother after a couple of days and said, Mary Frances, what do you think about your kid giving away a vasectomy? And my mom goes, it was a Kansas City Star. My mom goes, did you ever meet my kid? In his case, it might have been a good idea. I got 3 more days.
Oh, that's great.
So she was no rookie.
Oh, man. What a family. And again, of course, like, I would have liked to have met her. I would have liked to have met your dad. I would have loved to have met Rebecca. And it's just, I was telling Fran, the whole thing is great and fun. And as much as I wanted you to be my best friend as it was, I cried like a baby. And I don't cry when I'm normally supposed. And Joanne's the same way. We were talking about, like, when a family member or friend dies and I'm at a funeral, I'm like, tears. This is inappropriate. Like, I should be crying. And, like, I cry weird. But I was bawling at this thing.
Me and Gino were crying.
Yeah, I know. I was texting Gino for the, yeah.
I have one more disco demolition question.
Please.
Can I ask? This is my uncles and my dad told me about Steve Dahl.
Oh, yes.
So they made him a fake, like, TNT plunger to press.
Oh,
it was fake when they were blowing up the records for disco demolition. And my uncle hated him for years. Both of them did, because he was too scared to do it. It was fake. It didn't blow up anything, and he just left. And then they're like, "It doesn't actually do anything. You'll be safe."
By the way, that's
and he was too scared. That's what they say. So I don't know if you knew anything about that.
They're 100% right. And the other thing was, because they were my friends, the other thing they hated was he split.
Yeah.
He rode off the field.
That's what my dad said. Yeah.
Yeah. He split. He was upstairs in the press box where he was safe. I was on second base watching my life then.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Thinking about
God.
all the money I was going to spend on therapy.
Oh, God.
He is bolting out of the South Side, and meanwhile, it's essentially storming the Capitol.
Right.
That is what's going on in Comiskey Park.
Right. Then.
Yeah.
It is
Sharp jocks don't stay around.
No, they don't. He wouldn't even do the fake plunger TNT thing. Wouldn't even do it. They're like, fuck this guy.
Oh, my God. That is amazing.
That's so funny.
Well, what do you got, Joe? Because I know you actually love it.
Well, yeah, we're going a little over, so maybe we can keep going. Okay. We're definitely in the documentary. Since we span so much time, we're seeing a whole lot of parallels between you and your dad, and then you and Night Train. Especially, having your son come and work with you, or as you say in the documentary, I'm working for you. I'm going to work beside you, but I really want this. I want you to feel like this can be your project. So I wonder what you think is the best piece of advice or something you learned that you hope maybe your son doesn't do or does do better. What have you passed on to him?
The first thing is, and I thank you for noticing that, because that's why we bought Joliet, so I could work for him. Yeah. I wanted to work for him because he got a master's at Northwestern and he's very smart. And I think he will make people forget a lot of the Veeck lineage, because I think he's going to be that good.
Great.
But he was the first one to put up money. He put 25 grand into the Joliet Club and bought a point. He was the first one to line up doing that. And I don't call him with ideas. I wait for him to call and go, what do you think about this? But after I did Tanya Harding mini bat night, I think that kind of triggered something in him. And so he called me the other day and he goes, you know what you forgot with that? And I said, no, what? And he goes, well, I had a meeting with the plumbing supply company today and I sold a mini bat thing. And I'm like, oh, that's boring. And he goes, and then we put a plunger on the end of the mini bat, and I said, son, I'm glad I work for you.
Yeah.
What's my next assignment?
That's great.
Oh, man, I love it. Well, God, like, I suppose, like, with the Joliet Slammers thing, I mean, it's a partnership that has gone since, I guess, with your first really back-to-baseball gig in Miami, it has been Bill Murray that you've been partnering up with, especially with the Saints and a lot of other teams, and in South Carolina, all that stuff. I know there's a million, but any really good Murray anecdotes spring to mind?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when he got off stage, we had Bob Dylan played our ballpark several times.
That's amazing.
He talks like this. I mean, he's one of I have three heroes, Larry Doby and my dad and Bob Dylan. And Bob Dylan came off the stage in St. Paul because his mother lived in Highland Park. You don't really think about Bob Dylan's mother having a picnic in front of the stage where her son, the most famous poet of our generation is standing on stage. But they always had a huge following backstage, and there were all these people. And I was saying to Bill one day, I said, "You can't believe, there's Meryl Streep and all these famous people are back there watching this show from backstage." And that wasn't a huge stage. And Dylan comes off after like the second or third encore, and he looks at Bill and he goes, "You're a funny guy. You make me laugh."
That's a good impression.
That's really good.
It's really good.
And Bill looked at him and said, "Did you ever try Breathe Right Strips, Bob?" And just the look on your faces was exactly, that was my reaction. And I'm like, it's one thing to be an A-lister, it's another thing to be an icon. And then Dylan, to his credit, turns around and laughs and goes, "Yeah, see what I mean? He's a funny guy."
That's
But in
awesome.
1/10 of a second, did you ever try? That's what all those years at Second City and the improv.
No kidding.
That's what that teaches you. Is you just, it's the kind of thing we'd all write that 30 seconds later as we're walking off. But to come up with that instantly was really great. He turned into Marge Schott too. He without any props except a Labrador, or the big.
Well, just real quick, not that I'm being
sheepdog.
sexist here, but just in case you guys don't know who Marge Schott is, she was she was a rather racist owner of the Cincinnati Reds, and she had a bulldog called Shotzi that was the mascot, and people like Eric Davis and whatnot would have to deal with this dog shitting on the field and her mumbling possibly racist things, and then she got kind of kicked out of baseball. I'm sorry, go on, Mike.
So in the midst of all of those problems that you just listed so capably, Bill asked for a cigarette. He saw a St. Bernard. He took the St. Bernard. He took the cigarette. He turned around and got up on the dugout, and he became Marge Schott. It was one of the most astounding things. And you realize what a talent, what kind of of training and an actor that is. And so our idea was, we've been partners in 40 years for the Rutledge Cab Company,
Yay.
20 ball clubs or whatever it's been, and we've had a lot of fun. And so we decided that it would be Murray and Mike's March on their hometown. So that's what we're doing, going back to Joliet.
And you know what it is? You two both have a real sense of humor.
Yes.
You both can really find the funny, even in serious business scenarios, which is so refreshing. And I think that's what, you don't call them audiences. What do you, fans? That's what fans really respond to.
Typical Yankee fan. But well, all right.
I think one of the things about Bill that I find so unbelievably attractive is I get more scripts because he doesn't have an agent. He doesn't have
famously
a handler. He doesn't have all this stuff, and now it can ruin a night. If he and Woody Harrelson are trying to put a deal together, they got to call each other 450 times. You never get a chance to have a cold beer. But other than that, you admire the fact that he doesn't have all these hangers on. He drives himself around.
At the restaurant, he would come in smelling like a homeless person in a ratted up tie-dye shirt, and he would bust tables. He'd be like, "We want this one. Don't worry about it, Keanu. Like, I'll just take these glasses over." We're like, "Bill Murray, but please wait, allow me." He's like, "It's fine. We're good. It's not a big deal."
Yeah, it's my favorite is he gets in the elevator with you and eats 3 or 4 of your French fries. And nobody will ever believe you.
Well, yeah, Joe and I had the director of that documentary about all these Bill Murray stories. And, of course, that's a lot of them, like going up into a park and putting his hands over their eyes.
Yeah.
And turning around and being like, no one will ever believe
Like going into a kitchen and washing dishes.
At a party in Brooklyn.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a man about town.
Yeah, he really, one of the things that I so admire about him is what I liked about, you never hear a sad Bill Veeck story or a sad Bill Murray story, because he's one of us. We identify with him because even though his talent is so nuanced and refined in so many ways, they haven't lost that ability to relate to us. And so many of these people are,
yes.
We can't really relate to them, but that's what makes them so special, in my opinion.
Well, you guys, do you guys have any questions before we go? We've gone, because this has been amazing, we've gone 15 minutes over. But Steve, Luby, do you guys have any questions? They both saw and loved the docu. And by the way, the thing of it is, they've been dealing with me for the past 6 years, where I recall Steve saying, yeah, a lot of these fun facts, I unfortunately already know because I've been working with you for so
I have a question
about
the documentary. How did Charlie Day get involved in that? Because I'm a huge It's Always Sunny fan. And he was playing you, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, two things I love. Well, one thing Bill loves, the White Sox, and one thing I love, Charlie Day. So how did you get him to, do that with you?
Jeff Malmberg, who had done Marwin's War, he had written it and directed it. He and Morgan were kicking around the idea of who they thought would do it, and Jeff said, well, Charlie's got a chip on his shoulder. He knows how to do that. And,
love it.
Cool.
I never liked the second city. When we moved to St. Paul, it was second to Minneapolis. So, and being Bill Veeck's kids, you could imagine it was a long time before I had my own first name. So I had a little chip on my shoulder myself. And I had no idea who Charlie Day was. But if Jeff Malmberg and Morgan Neville thought it was good, that was fine by me.
Yeah.
They really were fun to work with.
Oh God, it was perfect. I love the and normally not a big recreation guy on documentaries if you still got some of the people involved there, but this worked perfectly. Yeah. Go ahead, Luby. Did you have a question?
Yes.
Okay, go.
Out of everything that you have created, and you've been so innovative, I just watched it a few days ago, the documentary. What is it that you're the most proud of that ended up being so much fun and it was so random? Like something.
Great question.
Like what wasn't? I mean, everything was so much fun.
Aside from the mimes.
But like your personal favorite thing that you came up with, and you were like a mascot or something that was like that people had so much fun doing.
Well, the one that tanked was I had raced a mannequin, and that was embarrassing. I went through this very existential period. Sorry,
I'm obsessed.
But the but the Isle of Borders, the grand experiment, as we call it, her book, Making My Pitch, the cover of it was shot by Annie Leibovitz.
Oh my God. Jesus, Rolling Stone and that.
That was really something. So I was riding through DC in the back of a cab, and it was one of those 3 a.m.s, and you're like, I just gotta get somewhere and sleep. And I went by the National Gallery, and Annie Leibovitz's show was there, and there was a 20-foot cutout of Isle of Borders on top of the National Gallery. And I stopped. I said to the cab driver, you got to stop. And we just kind of looked at it, and finally he goes, is that your sister? And I said, yeah, kind of. That'll do. But it was such a wonderful moment, nobody on the streets. And but I remember thinking, this is important. And she's an important, not a footnote. She's an important player in this whole thing, because there is going to be a woman in the major leagues in the next 3 to 5 years, and they're going to be standing on Isle of Borders' shoulders. So, a grand experiment.
Fucking awesome.
I have one more question for you. In the documentary, you said when you would be standing in a ball field, sometimes you would talk to your dad, and when you saw a flag blow, you would kind of think of that as his being there. Do you have something similar for Rebecca when you're in a field? If you see something or experience something, you're like, that's her there?
So I just came back from a bike ride, and we take Rebecca with us everywhere, and we sprinkle her ashes in places where, we ended up in Macon, Georgia, for example, and she loved Otis Redding. Who's that, Rebecca? She go, that's the big O, Daddy.
Oh.
I loved Otis Redding, so we'd sprinkle some ashes, but I was just at the end of the Pitt Street Bridge here in Mount Pleasant, here in Charleston, that's where we sprinkled the majority of her, and I go out there and stop on my bike and talk to her all the time. Just had a lovely chat with her this morning. I just am, I just was lucky enough to have this meteor for 27 years. I mean, she's a phenomenal human being, and she was wise beyond her years. And so, I don't know. She was a great kid.
Oh.
This was just an absolute highlight. I cannot thank you enough. Any plugs, promotions, prescription drugs you got for us before we let you go? And thank you so much. We made you go a lot longer.
Yeah.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I love to sit around and talk. So from now on, when you have that really important guest who screws you at the last minute and cancels, call me up, baby.
More bittersweet than you know.
I'm not proud. I like it. Look at those pictures behind me. How about that? Satchmo and Lash LaRue and the little Veeck and Al Cooper. You never know who your friends are. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Mike. You made my year. That was awesome.
Did my best to the whole Carolina clan. It was a
I
thrill.
will.
To talk
I
to
sure
you.
will.
Just wonderful. See ya.
Thank you.